So not much is going to be happening on screen, so you can pretty much treat this like a podcast. As a bunch of you know, and some of you don't, I not only work as a manuscript editor, I write books myself. On my website, you can find my 3 fantasy fiction books, and by the time this video is posted, there will be a 4th book available there too, Seeds of Shadows. This book is simultaneously a sequel to my A Heart of Woe novels, and also kind of a standalone. Trust me, it becomes much more clear when you actually read it. But to get to the actual purpose of this video, in the past when I have released books, I've gotten requests to give a little bit more information so that people know what they're getting into. So today, I thought to do you one better. I will talk a little bit about Seeds of Shadows, my inspiration for it, what to expect from it, and finally, read you the entire first chapter. Now, keep in mind, I am not a professional voice actor, nor do I do audiobooks, so I have no background or talent in being able to read stories aloud or do voices. I am mainly doing this so you guys can get a sense of my own writing, since this whole channel is me talking to you about writing. If you would like to skip the rest of the video and go straight to the first chapter reading, click on over to this timestamp here. If you are sticking around, let's talk for a few moments about Seeds of Shadows. So funny enough, this is the book that I have been most excited to release ever since I finished it back in about 2018. In fact, many people say it's my best work. It's just over 98,000 words, which comes out to roughly 280 pages. And while it's technically fantasy, like all my books, it is really a psychological drama / crime thriller. A very weird fusion, I know. But to explain, the story focuses on the noblewoman Anthuria Greenview. While her great-grandson is the ruler of the country she lives in, it's actually Anthuria who handles most of the business of running the country. She meets with other nobles, collects debts owed to her family, devises laws and infrastructure, all the good stuff. However, that is during the day. At night, she works more or less as a de facto kingpin of a massive criminal empire. See, Anthuria has very high standards, and across her long life, it's been her dream to find a worthy member of her family to be a successor to all the tasks she does in the day and the night. She would love to give the reins to someone else, but the many generations of the Greenview family that Anthuria has watched over have been disappointing. She has not found a single family member to be up to the task of what she does. Where things get interesting is when a young 12-year-old boy named Donovan Termore comes to the Greenview Castle from another country to be tutored by Anthuria's great-grandson. In not much time at all, Anthuria realizes that little Donovan is everything that she had been waiting for. The main narrative of Seeds of Shadows focuses on Anthuria becoming the new mentor of Donovan, and her slowly changing this innocent little boy into a political and criminal mastermind. The whole fantasy, psychological crime thriller drama might be making a bit more sense now. If we want to get into the inspiration for this book, Anthuria is a combination of so many of my favorite characters from fiction. Miranda Priestly from The Devil Wears Prada, Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, Olenna Tyrell from Game of Thrones, and a lot more. For the story, I really wanted to play upon this idea of nurturing and motherhood, but in like a really twisted way. Anthuria is more or less raising Donovan, but just in the complete opposite way that we are all accustomed to. Originally, actually, the main character was going to be a man, but I thought having an old woman in this extreme position of power would not only break away from some stereotypes and cliches, but add in the possibilities for some very interesting wrinkles into the story. Now, if a 300-page psychological thriller sounds like a lot to get through, I understand. However, one thing to know about me is, paradoxically, I hate reading. I think it's actually what makes me a good editor. I'm super picky. But that also means that anything I write for people like me. People who get bored with books easily. I know basically every writer says that they want their work to be easy to read and entertaining, but I really do go out of my way to make sure all of my books are something anyone could pick up. I've been that person that couldn't get through the book that everyone else was raving about. I've always defaulted to TV and movies and video games. So when I started writing my own books, I wrote them as if they were TV and movies and video games. I am very much a visual storyteller, one that values characterization, dialogue, and action over exposition. But hey, instead of me telling you about my writing style, why don't I just show you? So here is the first chapter of my newly released book, Seeds of Shadows.
And you want me to kill him?
If it pleases you, my lady, said the merchant, staring into his meaty lap.
It won't please me at all, and plainly pleasure is not my concern, nor my question.
She looked this bald, thrice-chinned man up and down for the 10th time. The way he slumped in his seat, the way his body poured down from his face, the way his Tektite jewelry was lost to the dough of his being, they all came together to make her loathe him just from sight.
I do not make a habit of repeating myself, so take this as your first favor. Do you want me to kill him?
This time, the merchant brought up his face to match eyes with Anthuria. Yes, my lady, I want him killed. I want him dead as dead can be. Up and down her eyes went for an 11th time.
He is sweating hailstones,
thought Anthuria.
Moving one's mouth is hard work, I suppose.
She brought her wrinkled hands together under her chin.
And how exactly do you want this man killed?
Excuse me, my lady? It was good fortune that the Descafront Anthuria was aged and sturdy like herself. It kept her from lunging forth to strangle this man in anger.
Keep calm, old girl. Use words, not rage. Your hands will get lost in his neck anyway. I will repeat myself. I do not make a habit of repeating myself.
She snapped her fingers, summoning 2 guards into the room. They came through the door in leaf green plate armor rimmed in white, holding arm shields in one hand and swords in the other.
Sir Herald, Sir Corbin, each time my guest answers questions in any uncertain terms, remove one of his chins.
There might as well have been a storm cloud above the merchant for how sweat dappled his face.
You only have 2 extra chins, mind you, and trust me, the knights won't need me to repeat myself. Do we have an understanding?
A definite one, the merchant said, shaking. But if I may beg your forgiveness, my lady, I'm not learned in taking life. I wouldn't know the first thing about assassinations. His sausage fingers went to twiddling. My hope was that you could take care of that section of our deal.
Oh dear, I'm about to ask the dumbest question of my life. Have you eaten a slab of meat before?
Of course, my lady. The finest meat, in fact.
Good. And unless your mother raised you like a hound, can I assume you ate that meat with a knife?
You can most assuredly think that, my lady.
Joy. And has there ever been any wine to go along with your finest of meats?
There was just as much pride on the merchant's face as sweat now. Feasting was his domain, clear and uncontested. Cellar's worth, my lady.
How strange it is, then, that you profess ignorance of assassinations, yet are privy to its finest tools.
Anthuria narrowed her eyes.
Knives and tampered wine have graved more men than you've done cows, unlikely as it may seem. You must have given some thought of how you wish to fuse the object of your hatred to the afterlife, yet your lips part for me to plan it all instead. My good guest, you aren't trying to shove more work my way than necessary, are you? You wouldn't be, dare I say, lazy.
Never, my lady, never, said the merchant in a fluster. I simply meant to defer to your wisdom. Anthuria tapped her desk, bringing the 2 guards closer. They stopped their march by the merchant nearly with him in his seat, hands on top of sword pommels.
"I am not in the business of wasting my time," she said. "I'm nearly 90 years old. I haven't much left to waste. Really, I have none at all. I might burst into dust at this very moment, surely much to your chagrin. So with the paltry hours I do hold, I like them to be well spent. I have no qualm with this man you want dead. He has not wronged me, my blood, my name, my castle, my lands, or even my garden. He has wronged you, my large friend. And it troubles me that you've taken not only your time, but my time as well, come into my home, asked my service, but not put the slightest effort into the execution. When you pictured this man dead, did he appear in your mind as a gravestone? A mound of dirt, perhaps? Was there no method or plan to his destruction? Are you so lax a person that you wish death on those that cross you, but bother yourself not in its doing? Do you know what becomes of those that waste my time as you have?"
"My lady," said the merchant, looking set to tear, "I—"
"Answer wisely,"
whispered Anthuria. Sir Harrel and Sir Corbin were ready to swipe their steel. Sweat dripped from the merchant like water from a loose sponge. With shouts and sobs, he fell from his seat onto his knees. "Please don't kill me, Lady Greenview, please. I am weak and foolish and gluttonous and meek-minded. I will do whatever you want of me. I will answer however you want me to answer."
"Oh, is that right?"
Anthuria lifted from her chair and walked around the desk to the merchant on his knees. When she stopped, her slippered feet were close enough for him to kiss.
"Answer me this, then. Are you as untrustworthy a man as I fear? Are all your gains ill-gotten? Has all that jewelry hiding in your folds been bought with blood?"
He bowed to her feet. "Yes, my lady, I admit to it all." Now he slammed his hands together and looked up, as if to pray to Anthuria on bended knees. I've stolen from my workers. I've killed other merchants for their riches. I've had graves dug up for plunder. I will tell it all, but please don't kill me."
"Just as I thought."
Anthuria sat back down behind her desk. An annoyed sigh left her body.
"I'm not going to kill you, you fat oaf."
The two guards picked the merchant up by his arms and plopped him back in his seat.
"Not for free, at least,"
Anthuria finished, rolling her eyes. "1,000 thanks, my lady." He pulled a cloth from his oversized tunic and wiped his soaked brow. Next came a coin pouch from his cliff of a hip. "And if you choose to keep silent about what I just said, you will have all this gold, and more." Sir Harrel snatched the coin pouch from the merchant's hand. "Do you want us to take him away, my lady?"
"No, good night, no. That would mean my time is truly wasted. I'd rather see him killed than waddle away with a fistful of my minutes."
Anthuria reached into a bowl on her desk and plucked a single sunflower seed from the pile. She did not eat it, but inspected it.
"Merchant, I have never been fond of games, even less so when I don't know their rules. It was quite cruel of me to best you in a game you did not know you were playing. My sincere apologies for doing such a thing to you."
Sir Harrel and Sir Corbin backed away from him. My lady, apology most accepted?" He sounded more dumbfounded than thankful.
"What I will not apologize for, however, is why I did what I did. I've known of your little grave robbings and killings for years now. They bother me little and less. What a man does with his money is his own business, until his business affects another man's money. Merchant, what does bother me is your weak constitution. The mere notion of steel and blood put you in a panic, then threw you to the ground, then ripped out all of your secrets. That is very bothering."
Anthuria twisted the sunflower seed in her hands, looking over every angle of it.
"Let us say, in sheer hypothesis, that I kill your man for you. What happens if his sons or brothers or comrades catches wind of what transpired? What happens if they brandish blades looking for the truth of his demise? What our short meeting has taught me is that your walls will break down if given the slightest push, and your fragile heart will lay your transgressions bare. And curious enough, I will be right there, bare with you. Do you think that is good business for me?"
The merchant's face sunk into sadness. "No, my lady, that is not good business at all."
"Not good business at all."
Finally, Anthuria put the sunflower seed in her mouth.
"Which is why you never came here today."
"Excuse me, my lady?" said the merchant, continuing his dumbfoundedness.
"You never stepped foot in this castle. You never traveled across the land. You never even had ill will towards this enemy of yours. And since none of these things happened, you will shed a tear when that man dies in his sleep. You will go to his family remorseful and promise them justice. You will come to this castle for the first time, of course, alongside the fallen's kin, and request I investigate the matter. And I will do so, and find nothing."
Anthuria crunched down on the sunflower seed.
"Do I need to repeat myself?"
"No, my lady." The merchant smiled. "I understand very clearly. But how will I ever repay you?"
"Loyalty. Be there when I call on you, for whatever I desire. But now, be gone."
Anthuria snapped her fingers, causing Sir Harrel and Sir Corbin to lift the merchant from his seat. "Thank you, my lady, 1,000 thanks," he said on his way out.
"For what? I've done nothing."
"Oh, yes, of course." And with that, the study door slammed, leaving Anthuria alone.
"Oh, so interesting."
She pulled out a ledger from the drawer of her desk, then opened it in front of her.
Gallibor Mord.
That was the fat merchant's name.
53 years old, 289 pounds, 6 feet tall, sleeps 9 hours a day, eats 4 meals a day.
His life was basically written in her ledger, the details going on and on.
Wanted dead by Dansley Melstone. Oh, so interesting.
This Dansley Melstone was the fat merchant's enemy, the man he wanted dead. Dansley had come not a week before, asking Anthuria to see to Gallibor's death. 2 men wanting each other in the grave, coming to the exact same killer. The old woman fashioned the tiniest of grins.
Another seed has sprouted in the garden.
And that is where we end. I hope you all enjoyed that, even though you had to suffer through my audiobook reading, and had your fancies tickled enough to check out the book in full. One last thing though, since Seeds of Shadows is a follow-up to A Heart of Woe Book 1 and 2, I would recommend reading those books first. Granted, it's not necessary since Seeds is technically a standalone book, but there is information contained within Seeds that will fundamentally change your perspective of the Heart of Woe books. But hey, if you want to read them purposefully out of order, be my guest in that too. Just know you have been warned. Well, as always, it was a pleasure, and I will talk to you all again soon.